Welcome to the Period Besties podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
Hi, Period Besties. Welcome back. Today we have a very special guest, my dear friend, Krissy Gassabare on, and we're going to talk all things motherhood, and that looks like many different things. So Krissy, so excited to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's fun to be with you. It's fun to be the interviewee instead of the interviewer.
Yes. And we're definitely going to talk to you about your amazing work history and career with
thank you.
That we do. I want to jump off and just ask why it is good to have children later in life.
I come to this topic as a national health journalist, as someone who has been writing for women for, I guess close to 20 years. And someone, Katie, you and I worked together in publishing more than 20 years ago. And all the nonfiction books and the health books that we were working on or working around. So I'll just approach it the long story way since I'm a writer, but I remember one of the early books that we were working on 20 years ago was He's Just Not That Into You. Like that was such a big book at Simon and Schuster when we were very junior assistants there. And then that was one of the books from that era, I think, along with Eat, Pray, Love and a couple others that became the springboard for my nonfiction writing career. We investigating what was going on in relationships, why, with things like Sex and the City on TV, why were people staying single longer than we'd ever seen before? And we were 50% of that equation. We couldn't figure out why is it so hard to date? But we were part of who was showing up. And I wouldn't even say part of the problem, but we were just encountering just such a new era. And this generation that for women to be out in the world and exploring what was possible for our lives and our self-actualization and having careers and traveling internationally. You've traveled a ton. I lived in Italy for a year. So all this to say, I didn't meet my husband until my late 30s and wound up, it's what you end up hearing about, for people who are still hoping to find their person. I found someone who was not my classic type, thank God. And someone who was just so loving and attentive and a good listener. He was also more mature than most everyone and a lot more secure than a lot of guys I had dated in my younger years. And part of that, because he's not quite a decade and a half older than me, but just about. And so he wound up a couple years after we met and got together, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So I already kind of knew I was up against the biological clock in a sense. And I kind of want to talk about, I don't want us to talk about it that way anymore. And that's kind of what I hope that we'll talk about today. But so in this period of time, it was a little bit time sensitive. I told him on our third date, motherhood's important to me. He already had 3 kids who were grown and But he was like, from the very beginning, he was like, I'm very, very open to having more children or another child. But then when we got his cancer diagnosis, that definitely set things back. I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but by the time we came through to the other side of that, and I always say to people, like, there is no stage 5. Stage 4, for a lot of people, like he's an MD, his best friends are all doctors, and they told us once he was in remission, they were like, we really did not know if you were going to make it. And we had a conversation briefly with his oncologist at the Cleveland Clinic as he was starting treatment, like, what is this going to mean if we want to have a baby later? And his doctor said, I don't think you're going to have to worry about it. But at that point, we needed to start treatments. There wasn't time to do anything anyway. So he gets in the second half of 2021. So he was diagnosed in February of 2021, was in remission by that September. So after 6 months of treatments, and today too, 4 years later, I say he's the healthiest he's ever been since I've known him. People are shocked when they hear that he was ever diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. But by that time, I was going on age 42. Like, I was well into my 40s at that point. And so got pregnant at 42, weren't even really thinking about it or trying, lost it pretty early in the first half of the first trimester. That was a bummer. Got pregnant again a year later, again, just not stressing about it, not trying too much, and then lost that at the end of the first trimester. And then we've talked about just the reproductive technology, the doctors that you talk to. So at that point, I started just researching IVF. And because he works in healthcare, we were connected with a great doctor. And unfortunately, it still didn't work. But I also feel like we did not, no matter how much I feel like I advocated for myself, I don't feel like we exhausted every possible avenue that we could have. I don't feel like we ran every possible test that we even should have. So literally just a couple weeks ago, a colleague put me in touch with her doctor, who she successful after multiple doctors. She finally had a baby in her 40s, and now her best friend is expecting a baby in December with the same doctor in New York. It's really easy when you're going through this process, like, to spiral emotionally, and you Google different things, and then you find yourself like on Reddit subs, and we haven't really had positive conversations around having babies in our 40s. And this year, it came out for the first time that women became first time moms over the age of 40 for the first time in history at a higher rate than teen moms. And I feel like we are heading in the right direction societally, where we're going for women. And in a time when, in the greater cultural discourse, in politics, when they're telling us like we should be having children. But another interesting data point that I've learned in my journey is women who give birth after the age of 40 have 4 times greater likelihood to live to age 100. And it's just thought that, right? Like, it's thought that it's because our reproductive lifespan is an indicator of our overall lifespan. It's not necessarily like that the act of giving birth or that anything necessarily biochemical that happens in pregnancy. It's not that. It's more like that longer reproductive lifespan is a good indicator that overall you're just keeping yourself young. And I love that. And even just, I really want to be encouraging to women. Like, I've obviously, especially as a health editor for a national publication, fortunately, I've had a lot of resources at my fingertips, or when I do some Googling and then I find an expert, I often will reach out to that person and say, hey, I do this in my career, but also like I'm researching this personally. And one researcher that I came across, she goes by Dr. Cleopatra. She calls herself a health psychologist. She's done a lot of research just around reproductive science, and Dr. Cleopatra Camperveen. And I took her She has a line of supplements. And it was crazy that between the ages of 43 and 44, over a year's time, taking her I don't know if it's just her supplements, but like just taking supplements that were good for my reproductive health, I brought up my AMH point like by 0.5. That's in your 40s to bring your AMH up. It to me, it felt remarkable. And some of my doctors also have been like, what? So I do think like some of these supplements I think have just helped keep me young in general. That's one of the reasons I guess I would say I just want us to be talking about all of this differently. And I say this as somebody I'm trying to conceive right now. IVF didn't go well. Another piece of this whole story that's really, really important, I feel like, to speak to. And sorry, I know I'm doing a ton of talking right now, but in 2015, I had my eggs frozen. I was 35. And as we did back then, like had gone through another dating heartbreak or whatever. And I was starting to feel like I lived in New York 2 different times. I'd been here for almost a decade in total. And I was ready to like buy real estate. So I was getting ready to go buy a house back in my hometown in Pennsylvania, very, rural Pennsylvania. I was still single, but I was starting to really think super seriously about my own future and what I wanted. So froze those eggs, and it's something that I do encourage women to do. We got 24 eggs from one egg retrieval. That was pretty outstanding, for age 35. My doctor was really pleased with that. I'll say last summer, so 9 years after I froze those eggs, we thawed half of those. So we thawed a dozen of them. We traveled to New York, they fertilized them and everything, and then they didn't develop. So I think an important point in all of this is it's not a guarantee. We still have 12, and there are still things we're looking at doing. And the conversation that I had with the doctor in New York just a couple weeks ago, he was like, if your husband went through chemo and immunotherapy, he said, there could be cellular damage, and we would just have to do what they call DNA fragmenting, like just a more pinpointed look, like a deeper look than they typically do as a baseline semen analysis. And he said, he's like, but I've had patients in similar situations. We put the husband on an antioxidant for 6 months and then they end up with 8 embryos. So I'm such a believer, Katie, in your story. I think about, like, I know you've shared your story on this podcast, and I think about there are always a couple sound bites that come back to me from your own story. There's a lot in it that I have found really encouraging, and we just need to be having these more empowered conversations about it. And I saw a headline today. I'm not even going to name the outlet. I looked, the writer of the story apparently is the managing editor of this health site. It was so offensive. It was so ignorant, like so ignorant, talking about IVF. And I'm just like, as somebody I'm still tempted, and I still might reach out to this person and be like, tell me you know nothing about this without telling me you know nothing about this. So there's just a lot of this that can be discouraging. And I want people to be encouraged and uplifted and empowered. And I don't know how, probably in your process you'd agree, like you just kind of have to hang on to any glimmer of hope and encouragement that you can find. But especially there are data out there that support like what's great about all this,
Yeah. I mean, something else that's also interesting is they're saying breastfeeding later in life too, and decreases your risk of breast cancer as well.
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah.
So there's so many different things, and thanks for just sharing your journey. And I think it's something that we all, especially all of our friends, talk about, whether we're going to have children or not. It's just that I remember when I was in the 5th grade, my teacher turned 40 and it was like over the hill, and it was like, that's it. And we're all in our 40s and we're just on speed dial. Like we're hitting our stride. Like we're doing it. Times have changed. And I really do believe that with all the new research, all the new technology. This is where I think technology is cool, right? Stop trying to find me on my phone all the time, but like technology in the sense
Yes.
of empowering women and letting us be in our own time versus that. I mean, I remember when I was going through all of this and oh my God, like just being called to geriatric pregnancy. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
just the name in itself, I'm like,
Yes.
you are so discouraging. Can you not think of something else to call me?
Exactly. Exactly. And you're starting to hear some doctors even saying we need to find different language for this. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It's amazing to me that you hit perimenopause and you go into your super fertile years, right? Like
Really?
you're popping off eggs like crazy pants because you're in perimenopause. So
Is
sometimes
that true?
you're popping off multiple. This is why twins
Mhm.
in later life
Happen more?
happen so often.
I
Fraternal twins,
wondered.
fraternal twins, because you're popping off multiple eggs at a time.
Oh
So
my
there's
God, I
this
didn't know that.
Yeah, there's this extra layer of fertility in your 40s when you're going through perimenopause that I've always thought was kind of hilarious because to me, I thought, well, that's a great way of keeping you from being in perimenopause when your kids are going through puberty at the same time. Less murder in your household, perhaps. Um, I felt like that was nature's way of being like, no, let me give you a break here. We'll make it so you don't have perimenopause and puberty in the same house at the same
That's
time.
amazing. That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's great though. Because I remember with the second pregnancy, I remember I went to see, my OB for like the 7-week checkup. And with the first pregnancy, we hadn't gotten a heartbeat. Like it just hadn't reached that stage. But with the second one, she was like, let me make sure there's only one in here because actually your chances of twins do increase after 40. And so that makes sense. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's harder to predict, right? Because your periods are more irregular. It's harder to predict ovulation. So if you're intentionally trying to have a baby, it's a bit harder because you're not a clock where you're like, okay, I'm usually around day 12. So like let's
Right,
start having sex
right,
on day 10 and just every
right.
night until we hit day 14. And like it's a little bit harder because it is so random and scattered.
Yeah.
But so it can be really unpredictable if you're trying, but it's also not a bad time to try in this,
Yeah.
in this
I
month.
love that. I love that you say that. And for anybody who's going through anything similar, even if you're younger than 40, be encouraged. I feel like in many, many cases, that is a better position to be in. But saying that, I mean, I also recognize there are younger women who have fertility issues and like they're struggling so much. So, of all the products that I've researched or tested, you've got like the ovulation strips and stuff like that. But one that I finally splurged on, it's called the keg, and it's a little smaller than a golf ball, and it says that it measures cervical mucus. I don't know the science behind it. I don't know the founder's background. Like I don't know what kind of scientist or what kind of science she's trained in, but it also has this amazing app that tracks your entire cycle and it says it's tracking your ovulation and also your basal body temperature, which I was not somebody who was religiously taking my temperature every morning like I know you're supposed to, but I was like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to do this for myself, but this app, whereas like some of the ovulation, like the urine strips were telling me I was maybe fertile for 2 days a month. Man, that's like my husband was away for a weekend, but actually with the keg, it's encouraging. Like it shows that you're ovulating for more like 6 days. So I'm just like, again, just any encouragement, like a 6 day possible window is better than a 2 day window. And it's something, I think it was like $250 by the time I bought it. But they also say that if you're not pregnant in 6 months, they'll give you your money back. So I just finally, it was just worth a try. But
We
yeah.
interviewed was it Amy from Ova.
Mhm.
This
Okay.
season 2, episode 22. And she has an app where they do ovulation and they do perimenopause. So you can sign up for either
Interesting.
one. So you can sign up for the fertility side of it,
Yeah.
The perimenopause side of it. But I think that's another good one if you are somebody who's looking for a glimmer of hope and needs some
Yeah.
help. That could be a good resource too. She was fantastic, and
Love that. I'll look at it.
she's a science data nerd. Like that's how she
That's
started
awesome.
thing, was because she was trying to do all of that, right? So she was trying to do all of the fertility stuff, and she was laying down everything. She had all these papers, and she was trying to do it scientifically and realized there's a gap here that needs to be filled desperately.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. I mean, it's nice to see more options than just peeing on a ovulation strip, especially when you're in perimenopause, because it's such a crapshoot. Like you really just, you can have the cervical mucus and it can be meaningless because you can still not ovulate. So it's
Yeah.
real tough
Yeah.
in perimenopause to track your fertility with any real confidence
Yeah.
without having
Yeah.
doing your basal body temperature. You either have to really
Yeah.
be on your basal body temperature or you have to like pee on a strip every day.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
You got to remember to do it every day.
There's a lot to it. And then you kind of, then, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like, but I just feel for me, I'm always thinking about my impact on the environment. I'm like, oh, I'm throwing away these strips every single day, then you go like feel bad. So, and they're plastic, right? Like, or the little cartridge is plastic. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Do you feel what's your experience been, I guess I should say, when with
Mhm.
your doctors? Like, are they trying to
Mm.
use new language? Like, are they trying to be more supportive? Like, because I know it's also challenging to find a doctor that you jive with and is going to be supportive at the same time. So, what's your experience been?
So the one who I went through IVF with here in the Bay Area, she was very kind and but very realist, like more than I personally needed her or anyone to be. She'd be like, "But you know the statistics." And I'm like, I know. I research this stuff for a living. You don't have to tell me. I know. Again, I liked her. And when I was like, I want to make sure we do the Emma and Alice testing, she listened to me and finally kind of indulged me. But anything extra that we did that was not outside the herd of cattle, it was because I pressed for it. And I guess the one doctor I talked with before I was put in touch with her, the doctor who did my IVF, he was just old white dude. I'm sorry, but just had been doing this for many decades, was so cold. And I mean, I've talked with probably half a dozen fertility doctors on both coasts at this point. Many are just very detached from it. I understand and I appreciate when they come to it like completely pragmatically, just being realists. I get that. But sometimes I just want to say to them, like, you could be doing a better sales job. You could be making it seem like you love this work more. And again, the doctor that my friend put me in touch with in New York, he was the first one who just, I'm not looking for anyone to be Pollyanna about it, but just all we're looking for at this point is for them to be willing to ask the questions and to order the tests or put through the requisitions for the tests. So he was saying things to me like, have you been tested for thrombophilia, which I think that's how you say it? It's a blood clotting disorder. I was like, nope. These are the kinds of things that I was pressing my IVF doctor to do. Like, is it just a matter of throwing in a baby aspirin? Heck, for all the pills that I'm swallowing down every single day, I don't mind a little bit of bruising from a baby aspirin or whatever. So I just really appreciate, again, it's so crazy to me that I spoke with so many doctors before. He was like, I'm going to send you paperwork to order, I think 6 or 7 different tests that for all the testing that I've done in the past 2 years, he's the first one that even brought up some of these terms. And then to say your husband we should look at the cellular makeup of his sperm, because again, like if it's just a matter of taking an antioxidant for a few months, it's so worth it. So yeah, when I was working as a ghostwriter, I hated when my clients would try to tell me how to do my job because I'm like, this is what I do all day, every day. I've worked in this business for decades. And so, like, I'm not suggesting my husband, again, who is a doctor, will sometimes say to me, like, don't get tempted to tell them how to do their jobs. Don't be that patient. Don't act like the know it all. And don't make it sound like you have researched this like a psycho, you know? But I'm still going to ask the questions for myself. So, yeah, I know that they know the facts. I know that they're around it all the time. And when they say, oh, it's unlikely that you're going to get an embryo a month before your 45th birthday, like we ended up getting 3 embryos, you know? So, yeah, it's hard. We are kind of treated just like it's pretty standard protocol. And we went through a large health system for my IVF because that's where my husband works. It's just all very fast moving. They've got a ton of patients. They're just shipping us through, but it needs to feel personalized to every patient, I feel like.
And we know our bodies. We talk about this all the time on the
Mhm.
podcast. Like we know our bodies and ourselves so much more than anyone else
Mhm.
on earth does, and really
Mhm.
advocating. I say this all the time, but when I would always be asked to be the last patient of the day because I had the most questions. And my doctor was like, yeah, I'm totally here. I want to answer all your questions, but I can't have you be the first patient. Like you've got to be the last. So I can like, if I go over with you, the whole day doesn't
Yeah, doesn't
up,
put it
right?
behind. Yeah.
But I felt the same way when we were going through fertility stuff and just waiting in the waiting room, and it was packed. And some days,
Yeah.
one day, like waiting there for 2 hours and then being super stressed because I'd been there for 2 hours and had meetings and other things to do. And I'm like, okay, it's not going to work today. I'm too stressed. I can feel it. I'm like, should I just leave right now? But even just being in that room and the energy in that room and everybody just hopeful but despair and all of those feelings together is also not a good starting point for
It's so true.
fertility.
Or like I would see another couple in the waiting room. Again, I was going through this exactly a year ago. And the wife and I, or the female partner and I, not to say that all couples are male and female. That's like I'm just referring to like what I saw whenever I was in the waiting room. But you'd be like, is the problem on her side or is the problem on his side? At our health system here in California, Kaiser Permanente, when you are pregnant, they have a cohort based program where you can, I don't know if you show up once a week or once a month, but you are seen by a midwife and you go, it's like a group setting. So you go and have these conversations. You almost start out with a support group, and it's not even just for women over 40. It's like just if you're pregnant and you're all kind of due around the same time, you'll go through the journey together. But I'm like, why aren't more? And I think some fertility clinics do that, but more need to do that. I think it would be hard. I guess it would be hard for the ones who then don't have success compared to the ones who do. That is really, really, that's super, super tough because I've just been living in a bubble. Like I have a friend who's going through fertility stuff right now. She's had a really, really emotional, really difficult, very, very, very difficult story, like even more difficult than most, heartbreaking. But like now she's feeling a little bit more hopeful, and I just need space from all of that right now. Like I don't really want to talk about anybody else's journey. However, like some kind of support would be really nice. Even just more books, not just what to eat if you're trying to conceive, but this very spiritual journey and just feeling more support. Like it's been making me think about a book lately.
Read Spirit Babies.
Yeah, I have it on audio. I have it on it's like kind of the psychic one.
Yes.
Yeah,
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 that's a good
yeah.
one.
I need to keep listening to that one.
And you bring up a good point too, though, because it's like we talk about fertility with women and we don't necessarily talk about the sperm as much as we need
Oh
to.
my gosh.
Sperm count is going down a lot.
Yes, it is.
So that's a huge part of the conversation. And as women, I feel like we own it more. We kind of talk about it more.
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself in my own journey, feeling like, why is my body doing this? Why can't I do this? And I don't know if that conversation is happening or
Okay. I
but
have
not out
thoughts.
loud. I'm
I have
curious.
thoughts. I'm really glad that you brought that up. So I just feel okay. Again, it's so nice to be be interviewed and not the interviewer. I'm so used to being on, and it's just nice. It's nice to share this stuff too, because I really haven't gotten to have this conversation much. I feel like as females, we are humbled from the time in our childhood when we're anticipating our period. And then when you get your period, and then when you're like in school and it bleeds through whatever you're wearing. And we just, from our youngest years, we are conditioned, thankfully, to just know that this journey is going to be hard and it's embarrassing sometimes. And it's yeah, like it just compromises your confidence sometimes. Whereas guys like my husband, who went through chemotherapy, who's like, he's going to be 60 next year, who enjoys his alcoholic beverages a couple nights a week. Like that's something that was part of my lifestyle that I've really put to the side. And it was so easy from my first pregnancy to do that. When he'll have a cigar like on a Friday night when he's got a high stress job. So, but also he like eats a lot of Splenda, and like eats a lot of carbs. And he's like, oh, they told me my sperm count's fine. I'm like, they check like 3 values for you. And for them, I feel like there's a lot of pride. And you even hear men when you just hear on TV shows, or I was watching the Dallas Buyers Club last night, and Matthew McConaughey's character, who is like very like a hypersexual man, he says like, I don't have any trouble getting it up. Like that is when a guy is struggling with that, like it affects their ego so much. I don't quite understand that. I'm sympathetic to it. I just personally don't understand why that is, but I've heard it. I understand that in many, many cases that is. So my husband was quite delighted to hear that everything with his, like the 3 factors that they looked at for his sperm was all great. And then when this reproductive doctor that I talked to a couple weeks ago was like, wait, your husband went through chemotherapy? And then I was like, yeah, all of our other doctors knew this. Why is one of them saying like we should just take a closer look at him? So you're so right, Katie. We women, like we know that it's part of the deal. We are going to be put through the ringer, and it's going to hurt and not be great for the ego. But yeah, he was like, I'm good. Like I'm not the problem at all. I'm like, I don't know there, buddy. And I would get him a couple supplements to take, and he would take it for a day and then not take it, not take it again for months. So but I really, really, really 100% agree with that. And when you look at the data, male factor infertility is 50% of the problem. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're less powerful or anything like that. Again, sometimes it's just taking a vitamin, or they can give you some medication, and it's not the worst thing in the world.
No, I talk to my clients about this all the time because I'm like, okay, you're on board. We've got to get your partner on board
Yeah.
because they're what you're eating and what they're eating, what supplements they're taking, it
Yes.
comes together. It's so important. And
Yeah.
it has been more challenging to get their partners on board, even though they like want to have a baby and they're into it. It's just I don't want to call it extra work, but like in a way, it's like taking extra supplements, eating different foods. And it's always been harder, or not smoking pot, because we know that
Yeah.
that
Yes.
definitely decreases sperm count and all of that.
Even just, we've reported on a couple studies, keeping your cell phone in your front pocket.
Mhm.
That's affecting it, which is crazy, but just don't do that,
Yeah.
So a lot of
Even tested men until recently, right?
Mhm.
When you went into a fertility specialist, the dude wasn't even brought up in conversation until recent. And
yeah,
even at that, not all of them do it. So it is
right.
part of that advocating for yourself is also making sure your partner is being tested, because it is not all
Totally.
you.
Yeah, not only that, but now we know things like your health through your pregnancy is based off of the male sperm quality. So
Oh,
if,
interesting.
right, like the placenta development and all that is based off of the male's fertility, like how healthy their sperm is. So morning sickness, gestational diabetes, all of these things that come up are
Wow.
in part his fault. Like, like I wouldn't
Interesting.
have morning sickness if you had just taken the freaking supplement, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, so there's more and more we're finding out the actual sperm quality is affecting not just if you can get pregnant or not, but the quality of the pregnancy, the health of the pregnancy, the health
Wow.
of you, not just the child, but your actual
Wow.
health in the pregnancy. So you really do need to advocate for your male, if you're a heterosexual
Yeah.
couple, you need to really advocate for your male partner being fully tested and vetted and then getting on board with, yeah, taking the supplements,
I
taking
love that.
even just a neonate, like just the same thing that a woman would be taking, like a
Yep.
pregnancy,
Yep. Yep. I've
folic
been on a
acid and all that good
prenatal for like
stuff.
3 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, he should be on it too.
Exactly.
It turns out.
Yeah. Right. That's, you know what though? I'm glad we're bringing up this point because I do just feel like for doctors, I would encourage, I'm sure the doctors who listen to this conversation are the doctors who don't need to hear it because like they're tuned in but that's one of the big takeaways from all this. Again, we don't know how much his side is contributing to I've lost 2 pregnancies and IVF didn't work out and we thawed 12 eggs that they didn't develop past like day 4. So that's why I'm kind of not losing hope just yet. We're just back to trying naturally and everything at this point. But I definitely do not feel like any of the doctors have pinpointed him to be like, hey, 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 stop in your tracks. There are some things that we need to take a closer look at with you. He's just kind of been let off the hook in a way. Yeah.
And you don't
And
want to play the blame game. You don't want to,
exactly.
or your relationship for that. But also, if you're with a partner who can't be bothered to take a flippin' vitamin,
Yeah.
is he going to change diapers? I mean, it is an
Yeah.
opportunity to step back in a partnership too and kind of evaluate, like, do you actually want to have
Yeah.
kids with this person? Like, if they can't
Right.
even be bothered to move their cell phone out of their front pocket or
Yeah.
take a vitamin once a day.
Or lessen the drinking, like it comes
Yes.
with sacrifices
Yes.
on both sides. This is real life. Like you want to have a healthy child and a healthy family, a healthy family system.
Yeah,
So,
the
yeah.
idea of all quit drinking when you get pregnant is pointless.
Or
Like
when the baby comes.
you've missed the
No.
whole point was to have a
Yeah.
healthy egg and a healthy sperm. And it's too
Yes.
late if after you're pregnant. Like that ship
Exactly.
sailed. I mean,
Exactly.
great, thanks, but like also
Yeah.
I would have rathered you had reined it in before.
All the research that I did, knowing that, it takes 90 to 120 days for both for me and almost 90 days for the sperm to develop. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever Katie and I talk to somebody about it, and we're like, you need about 100 days for the follicles to
Yes.
heal, for the eggs to be healthier. You really need a
Interesting.
solid 3 months of taking your vitamins, taking your zinc, taking your prenatals, like all that stuff. They're always just like, oh my God, I can't believe it really takes that long. Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean, Stasha, for the follicles to heal? Like just after they've released an egg for them to kind of then heal and
No,
then,
it's more
okay.
pre. So there's the undeveloped egg,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
theoretically, right, in all the follicles. And if you don't have enough minerals, it's primarily things like zinc, magnesium, those minerals that we talk about until we're blue in the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
But your follicles need them in order to ripen a healthy egg, right? So whenever you ovulate, you have about 10 to 15 follicles
Yeah.
that will
Okay.
mature eggs. And if you don't have enough vitamins and minerals, you're not getting healthy follicle development and egg development. So it's just blah, right? And then you have one egg that's not great, but it's the best of the batch. Versus if you really are taking all of those vitamins and minerals, you are essentially fueling those follicles to ripen
Amazing.
better quality eggs.
Amazing.
So then when you get to the best of the batch, it really is the best, not
Yeah.
just like the best of this batch. It's still pretty crap, but it's the best. It really truly is now a healthy, good egg, but it just takes time for those minerals to sink in, develop, and
Yeah.
help. And I use the word heal. That might not be the right word, but just to rejuvenate, to restore,
Got it.
remineralize, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
So it's funny because it's something that, you talk about with like dental health, like remineralizing your teeth, but it's like you also need to remineralize your follicles.
Yeah. Or like you have to fertilize the garden you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, for my orange tree, I'm trying to learn how to raise citrus out here and I haven't learned yet. And we're like, oh no, our orange tree, what happened this year? So yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But it does make sense in the sense as the soil too, because with
Yeah.
and what they're doing with farmland, like there's not enough minerals in the soil. So then there's not enough minerals in our diet. So these supplements do make sense. And the changes that we've gone through in our country with soil development and farming,
Yes.
right? It's changed. So it makes sense that we need these extra minerals
Yep.
and vitamins to supplement that what we're not getting in our food because of the soil. So
Right.
it goes back to the orange tree.
Yeah. Our soil was a lot healthier. We ate a ton more vegetables. We didn't necessarily wash them like we do
Yep.
now. They didn't go through
Yep.
the chemical sprays and processes. So
Yep.
yeah, we've lost a lot. It's ironic that our food costs more, is more expensive to produce,
Yep.
and yet it's less quality. And now you have to go buy supplements to, like you can eat your carrot, but also you need to go take a vitamin supplement on top of it. So like
Exactly.
your carrot costs twice as much to make. It's half as valuable as a nutrition, and you have to go buy vitamins on top
Yeah.
of it. Yeah, really wrecked the food system there. But that's
Yep.
part of that right? That's part of that falling fertility across the board. The falling fertility for men and women both across the
So
board.
interesting. That's very, very interesting.
And it's
Wow.
not coming up in conversation enough. I mean, I know that they're talking about why is the decline? Why are people not having children? Why are people having children later? Why are people choosing not to have children? Right?
Mhm.
It's political climate talk right now, but
Mhm.
nobody's actually thinking about what they've wrecked in the process and how we
Exactly.
need to fix it in terms of our food. I really feel like a lot of it goes back to what we're eating and what we're not eating, what we're not consuming. And it will be interesting to see if anybody connects the dots, the people in power.
I mean, this
Yeah.
is also why we have a growing health coaching industry, right? We have people because one of those things is if you want to have a healthy fertility pregnancy, you have to
Mhm.
eat really well. And no, we don't really know how to do that, especially in this
Mhm.
country, but
Mhm.
just across the
Mhm.
board. I mean, I've had clients around the world and talking about those basic food things. There's a reason that the health coaching industry is one of the most rapidly growing industries worldwide. And the period coaching industry is
Yeah.
part of the health coaching industry because I mean, when you talk about period coaching, you're not talking just about fertility. You're also talking about a happier, healthier period. 90% of people have PMS. You don't have to have PMS. It's not a phase of the cycle. It's just because the hormones are out of whack because you're probably eating out of whack. It's actually one of the easiest things to fix just with food, just even rearranging, right? So like
Yeah.
the period coaching industry, aside from endometriosis, PCOS, PMDD, all of the things that can go wrong, fertility issues, it's rapidly growing because that gap between doctor and patient, food, lifestyle, those things are not things that we talk about in the doctor's office.
Mhm.
We talk about getting better sleep, maybe, doing some breathing exercises to be less
Yeah.
stressed out. But there's not a lot of take a supplement. Maybe you get a doctor who's like, oh, you should be taking a B12 supplement or something. But
Yeah.
you really don't get a lot of that in between where it's lifestyle, it's rearranging how you're eating. Like I've had clients where I didn't even have to change what they were eating. We just had to rearrange how they were eating it throughout the day and throughout their cycle.
Interesting.
Just it can be so easy. it's also one of those reasons that like when I'm training period coaches, I'm like, you need to have an initial conversation with somebody, because you might have somebody that you're like, oh my God, 3 months and we can do this. Like, you're on the right track. Like, let's just spend 3 months rearranging stuff. And I bet you're great. Versus somebody who you're like, oh no, we're going to spend a year together, you and me.
Yeah.
If we really want this to happen, if we really want this to work, right? So it really is one of those situations where there's a reason that the coaching industry is booming, and it's that gap. You can only read so many books and watch so many things before you're like, I just need one person to freaking be on my side and help me.
Yeah.
Not everyone else, just me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, have your doctors recommended certain foods or supplements, or have you figured this out on your own? I know you're working with a few different doctors, but has there been a big conversation or any conversations about that?
So after the miscarriage, they did some ultrasounding and found out that it made sense after I took misoprostol to help pass that pregnancy, was not passing on its own for like 10 days after they didn't find a heartbeat. Then I had a crazy miscarriage, talked with a couple OBs, and they were like, yeah, this is not happening at this point. So took misoprostol. It really thinned out my uterine lining, plus probably just, being 42 at that point. My doctor put me on estrogen for a week. I can't remember the dosage, but I was taking it every 12 hours. And what I thought was so interesting, like she was about to walk out of the room and she was like, wait, don't take it orally, administer it vaginally. And it tripled my uterine lining in a week. And also she said, take vitamin E. And I was like, wait, which one? And I can't remember. She always was just like, just the Nature Made, like, the brand that you see everywhere. But I've found, and I've been splurging a little bit more on one that has like every type of vitamin E, and it's the most like bioavailable, I guess. I think it's Thorne's vitamin E that I've been taking. So yeah, with the estrogen, and you have to be careful. Like, I get tempted again, just like having the early perimenopause symptoms. Sometimes I just want to put myself back on that estrogen. Like, I still have some left over, but they say it can raise the risk for blood clots and stuff like that. So I avoid I avoid just doing it myself, but I'm still on vitamin E, and it makes sense. Like, it's good for the skin. I guess it makes sense that it could be good for the uterine lining too. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. One last question.
Yeah.
What are a few things that you think every woman should know that you've experienced, that you want to share, that they might not have been told by doctors or friends?
So I just think everybody should consider egg freezing. They say that fertility starts to go down after age 35. I would like, if you're thinking about it, or if you haven't met a partner, you want to be a parent someday, by age 35, I would suggest that. I would suggest researching it. It's important for women to understand, and something that they certainly didn't tell me in 2015. Like, the longer those eggs are frozen, this is oversimplifying it, but the substance that they use now to freeze the eggs in, it's gotten better over time, which is why one reason that one of the doctors that I worked with to try to fertilize those eggs from 2015, that's one reason why they might not have fertilized. The other thing, guys, I wish when I met my husband, and my now husband, when we were dating and we kind of knew that it was going to get more serious, I wish we had just made embryos like with those eggs from 20. Like, nobody tells you that when you meet the right person, does not mean you guys need to have a baby right away, but make the embryos, because the embryos are like, they hold up better. They're stronger than just the egg on its own. Then you have it, and then it's just a matter of thawing it and transferring it. Again, that's like really reductive. It's not quite that simple, but it's something that, coming out through all this, I'm like, if we had just known, we could have fertilized those eggs when they had only been frozen for 3 or 4 years, instead of almost being a decade old. So
I
yeah.
never thought of that either. But that's really crucial, that timing of it. Yeah.
It buys you time. I feel like it takes, for both a single woman, and then when you meet a great partner who wants to be a parent too, make the embryos, and then you can kind of relax for a while, enjoy life, don't stress about it. Like, you've done the hardest part, hopefully, in theory. Again, it's not a guarantee. None of this is a guarantee, and every body is different, but it gives you better chances. I wish that we had even thought to do that.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us. I know,
guys.
I know it's a hard one to share and talk about. It's emotional and it brings up lots of feelings. So thank you for just being open and sharing and vulnerable and helping everyone that listens to this episode.
Yeah, of course. I'm grateful for the chance to have the conversation, and to anybody who's having a tough time, stay encouraged. And if you're thinking about this stuff one day, start getting serious about it now. Like, take the vitamins or just go ask your doctor to test your anti-malarian hormone right now and any other tests that they might recommend, just to get a check-in on where you are and how well positioned you're going to be as time goes on.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, so much, Stasha. So good to meet you.
Good to meet you as well. Thanks to everyone for listening to today's episode. We are so stoked to have you here, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.
A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bressack Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bressack, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebressack.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.